It was the kind of afternoon that turned dust to gold under the setting sun. When even cruelty could look beautiful if you didn't look too close. The crowd gathered around the wooden platform at the edge of the town square, where laughter echoed and men's voices rose over the cries of the broken. The air smelled of sweat, horses, and greed. That was the day they decided to auction off a woman in chains. A young bride whose only crime was belonging to a man who had lost everything. Her name was Clara. Once, she had been the pride of her father's small farm, gentle, beautiful, with eyes that carried a quiet strength. But when her husband gambled their future away and vanished into the wilderness, the town's debts came for her instead. And now, with wrists bound in iron and dirt streaking her cheeks, she stood before men who saw her as nothing more than a way to make coin or claim a body. "Look here, gentlemen," the auctioneer shouted, his grin wide and rotten. "A fine young bride, well-trained, quiet, still wears her ring. Who'll start the bid?" Laughter broke through the air, sharp and cruel. "She ain't worth much without her men." One voice jeered. "I'll take her for the price of a mule." Another barked, and the crowd roared. Clara lowered her gaze, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. She wanted to disappear, to sink into the dirt beneath her bare feet, but instead, she lifted her chin, her voice trembling as she whispered, "God, please, don't let this be the end." That was when the crowd parted. Hooves thudded against the ground, slow and steady. A man rode forward on a weathered bay horse, tall, broad-shouldered, his hat pulled low, the sun casting fire across his jawline. His coat was dusty, his boots scuffed. But his eyes, steel gray and weary, held a kind of sadness that silenced the laughter. His name was Luke Carver, a rancher known for keeping to himself since his wife's passing 2 winters ago. He was a man who spoke little, worked hard, and carried the kind of pain that made others avoid his eyes. But on that day, something in him stirred. He looked at Clara, trembling, desperate, still defiant, and something deep inside his chest cracked open. "How much?" His voice was quiet, but it carried. The auctioneer blinked, startled. "You want her?" he asked, almost mocking. Luke dismounted, his boots crunching against the dirt. "I said how much," he repeated. "She's not a horse, mister. You name your price." The crowd murmured. Some laughed again, sensing weakness. Others whispered, recognizing the men who owned the largest stretch of land west of the river. The auctioneer licked his lips, suddenly nervous. $50, he said. "That's the starting bid." Without hesitation, Luke reached into his coat and dropped a small pouch onto the platform, the sound of heavy coins echoing like thunder. "There's 200 in there," he said. "I'll take her." The laughter died instantly. The auctioneer's hands shook as he fumbled with the chains. Clara's eyes widened, tears cutting through the dirt on her cheeks. She couldn't speak. Luke nodded toward her, his voice softer now. "You're free," he said simply. "No one here's gonna touch you again." But as he turned to leave, the auctioneer called after him. "What's a man like you need with a woman like her?" Luke paused, looking back just long enough for the town to hear his answer. "My son needs a mother," he said quietly. "And maybe I need someone to remind me what hope looks like." The town went silent. Not a single voice rose against him. Even the cruelest men dropped their eyes. Luke took Clara's hand, still bound in chains, and led her to his horse. He cut the iron with one swift strike of his knife, the metal clattering to the ground like thunder rolling away. She flinched when his hand brushed hers. But he only said, "You don't have to thank me. Just don't look back." The ride to his ranch was long and quiet. The wind carried the scent of sage and rain. For the first time in years, Luke felt something stirring in his chest, a sense of purpose that had been buried under grief. When they reached his land, a little boy came running from the porch. "Pa," he shouted, his small boots thudding across the dirt. He stopped when he saw Clara, hiding behind Luke's leg. The boy's blue eyes, so much like his father's, studied her curiously. "Is she gonna stay?" he asked. Luke knelt beside him and said softly, "If she wants to." Clara looked around, at the worn fence lines, the gentle hills, the lonely silence of the place. She saw a man who had lost too much and a child who deserved more. Something inside her, something that had been numb for so long, began to thaw. "I'll stay," she said quietly. "For the boy." Luke nodded. Though something in his gaze said he understood what she didn't say aloud. She needed to heal too. Days passed. Then weeks. The ranch began to change, little by little. Where there had once been silence, there was laughter now, the kind of laughter that healed instead of hurt. Clara taught the boy, Sam, how to read, how to feed the horses, how to plant the seeds before the rain. Luke watched her from a distance, his heart fighting a battle he thought he'd already lost. He wasn't sure what scared him more, the thought of losing her one day or the thought of loving again. One night, when a storm rolled across the plains, lightning cutting through the sky like broken glass, Clara found Luke fixing a shutter on the porch. "You don't have to do that," she said softly. "You'll get soaked." He looked over his shoulder. Rain streaming down his hat brim. "Old habits die hard," he said. She smiled faintly and stepped closer, holding the lantern. "You saved me," she whispered. "But I still don't understand why." Luke turned, his eyes meeting hers in the flicker of the lantern light. "Because I saw myself in you," he said. "Trapped, broken, trying to survive in a world that doesn't forgive. I couldn't walk away and still call myself a man." For a moment, the storm fell silent around them. Then, softly, Clara reached out and touched his arm. "You didn't just save me," she said. "You gave me a reason to believe again." Over the months, the ranch flourished. Neighbors who once whispered about the woman in chains now came to trade, to share stories, to admire the change that hope had brought. Clara's laughter filled the air. Luke's heart began to lighten. But one morning, a rider came from town, bringing word that Clara's husband had been found alive. The men wanted her back. The law, cruel as ever, gave her a choice: return to him, or face jail for running away. Clara's world tilted again. She stood on the porch, her heart breaking, as Luke quietly said, "I won't stop you if you want to go." She looked at him, at the man who had given her a home, a family, a second chance, and felt tears burn her eyes. "That man sold me like cattle," she whispered. "You gave me back my name. You taught me what love could be, without ever asking for anything in return." She took his hand, trembling. "I don't need the law to tell me where I belong." The rider left without her. And as the sun dipped low over the plains, Clara stood beside Luke and Sam, watching the sky turn crimson. For the first time in a long time, there was peace. Years later, folks would still talk about that day in the town square, the day a lonely rancher silenced a crowd with nothing but courage and kindness. They'd say it was the day mercy looked like love and love looked like redemption. And if you asked Luke Carver about it, he'd just smile and say, "They laughed when she was in chains. But now, they come to us when they need hope." And somewhere, under that wide country sky, a woman once broken walked free, not because someone bought her, but because someone believed she was worth saving.